Good evening, Jeopardy fans, and we are back with hashtag Jeopardy Live panel. This is the live roundtable for season 3, episode number 1, here on September 19th, 2016 at 8:05 p.m. And once again, I'm back. I am Andy Saunders. I am moderating once again tonight's live discussion. If you've got anything you'd like to say, you can obviously use the hashtag Jeopardy Live panel on Twitter. You can also, I believe there's a chat function to the right of this live broadcast on YouTube. You may be able to use that as well. We're using YouTube Live now. Over the summer, since our last episode, Google kind of rolled its Hangouts on air into YouTube Live. So we're trying out that new technology for the first time. And now I will introduce our live roundtable panel for this evening. First up, he won a game last week. Congratulations. And welcome to hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, Scott Bateman.
Thanks. It's great to be here. This is going to be fun, I think.
You think it's you think it's going to be fun, and also on tonight's live roundtable we have J archivist, J board moderator from Winnipeg, Manitoba, David Kendall.
Hello. Always a pleasure to be on talking about.
David has been on many times. I'm sure he will attest to how fun it can be.
On the panel, not on Jeopardy.
So, to get started right off, I think the first topic of discussion, probably best to talk about the new sound effects. The new sound effects when the board fills in the Jeopardy round, I think I'll say we are all in agreement on one thing. It caught us all by surprise when it happened.
Yes, I would say so.
Now, my first actual question for you, Scott, do they actually play the music, that sound effect, in the studio?
They do. I didn't really pay attention to it at the time, but I think on tonight's show is the first time I really noticed it. And my wife and I just kind of like looked at each other like, that's different. It'll take some getting used to, I think.
Well, honestly, I would say, the first show was a surprise. The second show, by the time it came around, I'm personally a big fan of it. I like the new music. I like the fact they do try to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
I suspect I may be almost a lone wolf in my feelings on that, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to tweet at me or chat in at me in the next couple of minutes telling me how much they hate it. So please tell me how much you hate the new sound effects, because I will tell you you're wrong.
I do like the new season's opening sequence, the graphics for the coming into the show.
Yes, I'm okay with those two. I was actually a really big fan of last season's. I really liked. There were some really, really nice pictures, and it was fun to figure out where the pictures were coming from. But I would say, so yeah, once again, use hashtag Jeopardy Live panel to disagree with me, because I'm sure you will. Yeah, so David, what do you think of it?
Well, in terms of the sounds, I think I mentioned this on your blog earlier, that at first I didn't like them at all. Then I said, well, okay, it could be better. Then by the end of the week, I started to like them. I kind of see it as a mix of the original boop, 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 boop sound and the later dum, 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 dum sound. It's kind of like a newer version of the original sound. So it's kind of like a mix between the two, so I kind of like that. I've noticed, though, yeah, I agree with Scott about, like, updating everything and all that, but that's the only thing they've updated. They still have that tacky 80s font for the show title, and...
They're never going to change that. You realize.
They're never going to change that, yeah.
But institution.
Yeah.
It is an institution, but then so is the boop, 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 boop for the longest time. There are other things that they could update that they never have and probably never will. But it is nice to see that updated. And of course, as Scott mentioned, they update the opening thing every season too. I was actually kind of hoping for something quite different for the opening thing. Like, it's more or less like season 32, except for that they're in like glass museum boxes instead of just on their own. I was hoping pictures of the Clue Crew or whatever. But
I kind of thought, there often between seasons you see some changes to the set, and it's not very different. Though in the studio there were some there's some lighting effects I don't think they've used on the show yet that they can do that are pretty cool, but they haven't used them.
Yeah, that also surprised me. The set is pretty basically much the same. I haven't seen a difference.
So, the new lighting you're speaking of, Scott, is there anything that you think they might use it for?
Probably for some of the effects that I saw. It looked like there are things they could really use well for Final Jeopardy when they're writing the answers. Things where it gets kind of dark and there's like a lot of red and stuff. It's really,
okay.
Really neat. But maybe over the course of the season they'll start introducing some of those.
Is it really dark when you're writing down your Final Jeopardy? Like,
when you're on stage, you're on stage, you don't notice because you're kind of looking at the computer screen and writing on it. But in the audience, you can tell, yeah.
Okay, so in terms of nostalgic purposes, we have one tweet up already from Jay O'Brien, the contestant from last season. He still has the Sports Jeopardy app for nostalgia, but looking at this, I think I've seen this, but it's been a while since I've seen the Sports Jeopardy app. That's for sure. But yeah,
he's have an app.
There was an app, basically just before the show started a couple of years ago on Crackle. They really pushed an app.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it was kind of like to test the waters, I guess, and that kind of.
I guess I'm not sure, but my next question, I think tying into the fact that a couple of games last week, Scott, were won with rather low totals.
Yeah.
Meaning, obviously, Final Jeopardy wagering was, a big thing. How much did you look at that going in? Because obviously, I would say Final Jeopardy wagering certainly worked out well for Elizabeth and worked out well for Siddharth in his Friday game. So,
yeah, it definitely worked out well for Siddharth on Friday. Going into the getting ready to be on the show, I was advised by some Jeopardy people to really look at wagering. To really, as much as you train on the J archive and stuff like that, but also to really practice wagering a lot. And someone gave me the good advice of don't think of it as real money until after the show's over. Just think of it as points, because then you don't get conservative with your wagering. You can just go for it, basically. And and that turned out to be good advice.
Have you, I guess you were familiar with Keith Williams' Final Wager channel?
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's like the resource for wagering. I know once I get the call, you're going to watch the Final Wager.
Oh. Well, basically, I would watch episodes and wager as if I were all three of the contestants.
Yep, that's I will say that's an excellent way of going about it.
How to wager from second place pretty well, which is probably the hardest place to wager from. So,
well, as it turns out, you certainly didn't have any issues with having to, or at least coming up with that, or coming out of that situation, because you were leading twice. Also looking at this, looking back at the numbers, you didn't give very many wrong answers or incorrect responses in your two games. Was that just your your threshold for responding was significantly high, or did it just happen to turn out that way?
I think it just happened to turn out that way. I was actually surprised to learn that after the fact. I didn't feel like I was getting everything right on stage. But then later I saw the statistics and I was like, really? Okay. And there were things I rang in on and I didn't know I knew them. Like Ibex and Guatemala and a few other things. It's like, how I was watching at home when it aired last week. Like I was like yelling at the TV. How did I know that? I don't know these things, and yet they fell out of my head at just the right time. So,
well, that works. I mean, that certainly works sometimes.
you know more than you think. Is kind of true. So.
Mm-hmm. So, your first interview, you spoke about your disalmanac a bit. Now, you've got two Canadians with you on the panel tonight, and I'm going to ask you again, and I'm not going to make fun of you for it, and I'm not going to get upset at you over this. But can you please tell? I heard a rumor that you had some choice words about our country. So, if I can ask you, please tell me what you said about Canada.
Oh, this is embarrassing. I wrote the book. Book came out 3 years ago. Probably wrote it like 4 years ago because of publishing so slow.
Yeah.
I don't fully remember what I wrote about Canada, but I don't doubt that people would be offended. I meant it to be funny and humorous. It's onion-like fake facts about. The book is basically a fake version of the World Almanac where I just make fun of U.S. government, countries of the world, Canada, science, everything that's in an almanac. I just wrote my own version of it, and Canada might not have come out well. I apologize. I honestly don't remember off the top of my head what I wrote about it. But you mentioned this to me a few days ago, and I'm like, oh, sorry.
I think it's the national pastime of the U.S. to make fun of Canada because we're easy targets, let's put it that way. We're right there, and we got a good sense of humor about ourselves.
That's the important thing. You have a good sense of humor about yourself.
You make fun of like North Korea and Zimbabwe. Yeah, you might get on the wrong end of something, but Canada, yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah.
It's a nice country. I've spent time in British Columbia and on Prince Edward Island both, and beautiful place. And I love you guys.
So Twitter was a little bit of buzz last week during your shows. There were a lot of people who seemed to think you looked like Louis C.K.
I get that a lot in real life. In fact, Daniel, who was on the Monday show in the middle, when we were in the green room all together filling out our paperwork, he kind of pointed across the room at me and said, "Louis C.K." I thought he was like, "You look like," just yelled out the name and pointed at me. Like, yeah, I get that sometimes. And also sometimes get the comedian Brian Posehn, who's pretty famous but not as well known as Louis C.K. That depends on my beard length, actually. He has a long beard, so.
I think the apex was reached when Louis C.K. actually presented a clue, which you then proceeded to answer. And then people were like, "Come on, Jeopardy, what's going on here?"
Louis C.K. answering his own question. Yes. No, that was actually funny for me on stage, being aware that people have said that to me before. Yeah. I was really happy to ring in on that one.
So,
but I have been in a room with him before, so we're not the same person that I know about.
Good to know. Good to know.
People can rest assured I was not secretly Louis C.K. answering my own question 6 months after he taped it on the show.
Yeah. Because other people were like, well, he taped Power Players Week. Maybe he wanted to give the real show a shot because Power Players were too easy for him. And
Louis C.K. would do very well on regular Jeopardy. I think he's a sharp guy.
I think he could maybe win a
game. Thinks on his feet well. Yeah, he'd do well.
Yeah, I could see that. Definitely. I think, though, I think they would. It would be interesting to see if they decided to, let's put some celebrities in here, against the, regular people, but against the civilians.
Wolf Blitzer for my game, please. Wolf Blitzer.
Yes, yeah, bring Wolf Blitzer back so he can kind of redeem himself a little bit. That's a good idea.
But I mean, I think, to be honest, I feel as though we had a discussion a few months back on Live Panel as, Andy Richter versus Matt Jackson, who would win. So,
yeah, that's a conundrum right there.
Because
Andy Richter's really sharp. So
I was blown away by him. Holy man! When I saw that episode, I thought I would like to see him in some other Jeopardy thing. If they put him on Celebrity again or whatever, I want to see him on again.
Yeah, I'd love to see him back on Celebrity for sure.
Whatever they put him on, I want to see him on.
Yeah. Oh, I think that would be there would be a lot of people who'd want to tune in to see that for sure.
Oh, yeah. So against, Ken Jennings and Brad Rutter and see what happens. He might have.
They're all celebrities in their own right, anyways.
Well. I don't know if I do that to them, but
just a thought.
So, going through your couple of games, were there any categories where you'd consider to be a favorite or even a least favorite of yours?
Actually, this is kind of funny. One of my strengths in trivia has always been popular music. I just always remember who does every song and the albums and all that stuff, how they did on the Billboard chart. Even I have like a vast storehouse of knowledge of that. So on the Wednesday show, when we got the Hitmakers category, I was kind of psyched. But then Barbara ran like the first 3 questions. I was like, hey, wait a minute. This is supposed to be my category. But I got one, and none of us knew the last one. So, but because I've been kind of hoping for some sort of a pop music category because I do well in it, but then I didn't get to actually answer much of it this time around.
Yeah, that's a bit, obviously it's always disappointing when your wheelhouse comes up and, you just can't get in on the buzzer. But,
Yeah, but Barbara was being really sharp on the buzzer at that point, too. She, we all kind of had runs on the buzzer during that game where because I was ringing in a lot for a while, and Barbara was really in there a lot, too, for quite a while, especially the end of Double Jeopardy when she came back up and made it really competitive.
Mm-hmm. And I feel as though one of your local local media outlets ran with made the comment that you needed to do better on the buzzer your second game, because I think they picked up my stats and decided to start making comments. Oh, kind of slow on the signaling device, but because Barbara definitely had your number on a couple of occasions there.
Yeah, the buzzer is a tricky thing. I mean, you guys probably know that at the audition they give you the Jeopardy pen to take home and practice buzzing, and they say and they tell you it's a pretty close analog, so just keep doing that. And really, it's not super close analog at all. It's a bit bigger, heavier. The button's a bit more unwieldy, and there's a big cord coming out the back end, so it's like a little. It's much trickier than you think it's going to be, and and especially in the second game, I didn't really feel like I had my buzzer rhythm at all. So,
do you find the buzzers that they used in the audition were comparable to what they have on stage? I was told that they at my audition they were exactly the same. And
yeah, I think that's true, but it was like a year between my audition and when I got the call to be on the show, so I had no real good memory of body muscle memory of using that buzzer. And you're only at the audition, you're only up there for 5 minutes, tops, without practicing with the buzzer, because there's a room full of 20, 25 people who all have to get up there and take turns and stuff. Yeah. They just see long enough if you are comfortable up there, can do a quick interview, and if you're quick to ring in and quick to choose the next question. I think
that's what I told people.
You're not insane.
it's not testing your trivia knowledge, just testing on if you're good on TV.
I think so. Yeah, I think so, because I think the tests have already. First thing you do when you go in is to take another test to kind of verify that you did well. You're the one person who took the online test.
And because you're a Jeopardy person, you like tests.
Yeah, exactly. I was excited.
Weird.
But I think the audition itself is to see how camera ready you are to some degree.
Yeah.
I felt like in my group, this was 2015 in Boston. I felt like I was in the kind of middle of the pack of people in my room. So I was kind of actually surprised to get the call this year anyway. Because I felt like a lot of people did a lot better than me at the audition.
And you haven't seen them on yet?
I've seen some of them on. I don't remember names of people, but I think I've seen a few of them on.
It's funny. I actually have the same problem, and I even have a picture of my audition group, and I still have trouble seeing. I think maybe there has been one from my audition group who's made it on, but
yeah, I can't remember anybody who was on. I remember like there's a couple of people from Minnesota and all that. I'm just looking. Okay, every time somebody's on from the Midwest, what they maybe on as Quint and see if I remember them or not. But anybody in the Midwest at all, just right one was them. I don't know.
Well, the thing I remember most about the audition in Boston was that of the people in the room, 25 or 30, however many it was, none of us were from Massachusetts. We had all driven some distance to get there. Maine,
wow.
I'm sure someone had driven from D.C. Someone who was supposed to do an Atlanta one flew up from somewhere in the South because they had missed the Atlanta one they were supposed to go to. It was nobody was local. It was so funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of, as I said, there's a lot of Minnesotans in mine.
Yeah.
We were in Kansas City, so.
Oh, right. There you go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was definitely, there was nowhere really massively local to either one of us. I ended up in Kansas City as well.
Nothing is local to me. I'm 8 hours from the nearest large American city. If I get Minneapolis, which is 8 hours from me, I am dancing in the streets. Kansas City was a 14-hour drive, and I'm saying, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
That's part of the downside of living way out here, out in the
Winnipeg, right?
I'm an hour west of Toronto, and essentially Kansas City was, okay, well, day one of drive, it's, one way is flying, going back, it's like, well, day one of drive, we'll go to Chicago, and we'll stop in Chicago for the night, and then day two will be Chicago to home, and
that's a long drive. Yes, it is.
Moving on to some of the, these are the standard questions that I have grown to ask of people on Jeopardy Live panel over the years. The first one, I think is probably the one question that people most expect me to ask now. But I'm glad I get to ask it because you were obviously there in between the Wednesday and the Thursday tapings, which I believe means you got to experience lunch at the Sony commissary. Is that correct?
Those of us who were left were all marched over in a herd to the Sony commissary. It's a couple hundred yards, maybe. I don't know. But, they keep us all very close together, keep an eye on us. We get little vouchers to get whatever we want to. I had a turkey wrap, I believe, because I didn't want anything too spicy or whatever. Someone in our group, I forget who it was, spotted Luis Guzman eating a sandwich in the commissary. And we all kind of looked at him and went, ooh, it's Luis Guzman eating a sandwich at the Sony commissary, which is thought. And then, of course, we all walk back, and we all eat together at a couple of tables, and with at least one or two Jeopardy, people to keep an eye on us, basically.
Yeah. So were there any candy bars offered?
No, but here's a weird thing, and maybe I don't know if anyone's talked about this for this season yet, but because during the commercial breaks when you're on stage, they brought us the big regular sized bottles of Smart Water, and they filmed us drinking the Smart Water, except for Barbara, who could not do that because she was in uniform, and it would be like she can't do, support a product while she's in uniform. But they filmed all of us drinking smart water during the breaks instead of bringing the little water that I think Jeopardy people.
Because you're not smart enough is the implication here, I guess.
Yes. And the thought was that maybe we were trying to figure out how they're going to use the footage, basically, and if maybe. The theory is, and I don't want to put too much credence in anything because I don't know, but maybe Aleve will be replaced by smart water at some point, and they want to have this footage of people Jeopardy contestants drinking the water to be smart. I don't know. We didn't sign a waiver to make a commercial or anything, so I don't understand what it was for.
That's what I thought, but I think in the paperwork there's like we can use your image for whatever we want in perpetuity throughout the universe.
That is definitely true. You're right, and that could I could end up like a commercial. I have no idea.
From what I'm guessing, from what you said, it sounds like that's what they're going to do. It. Joking aside, smart water seems like a great fit.
That's true. And they were really pleased with the way apparently I drank water very photogenically. They were very happy with they took like extra shots of me drinking the water. I don't know. This is going to be embarrassing at some point, probably, but it's out. It's going to be out there.
I only won one game of Jeopardy, but damn it, can I drink water?
Is there a water drinking game show I could be on? Because that would be like my good thing, I think.
I feel as though something like Minute to Win It might be like. You have to answer these trivia questions while drinking water.
Like American Ninja Challenge, except we just drink water instead of running an obstacle course.
Yes. So what other things did you do when you were in Culver City?
My wife and I flew out Tuesday night. Our flight was delayed by 5 hours due to weather on the East Coast.
Oh, no.
We got to the hotel after midnight.
Oh, wow.
Andre, who was on Tuesay's show.
On tape day, you got to the hotel.
What?
The midnight before tape day is what you
said. Yeah. Midnight LA time, too. And apparently Andre from the Tuesday show got in a little bit later than us even. So I didn't have much to complain about because he had it even worse. But yeah, then our Jeopardy day was basically done on the Wednesday because we taped on the Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Thursday, we flew out late in the day on Thursday, but we caught a screening of Ghostbusters near the hotel.
Okay.
That's about all we did. We didn't do anything super touristy. It was kind of a whirlwind trip, actually.
Mm. Have you been to Southern California before?
Yeah, I've been there a few times before. I was out there last year for a film festival. I have a lot of friends out there who work in TV.
Oh,
I know a lot of. I lived in New York City for 10 years. I got to know a lot of stand-up comedians. A lot of them moved out to LA to write for TV over the past couple of years. So I've been out there a couple times to see people and do things, but there was no time on this trip. So
my next question, is it any different watching now that you've, been on the show, taped 2 episodes?
Yeah, mostly no, but having been in the space, it is everything's closer together on stage than it looks on TV. Alex is not actually very far away. That little TV screen where they have the Final Jeopardy category is like, if you're the champ, it's like right next to you. You can almost touch it. I was surprised at because everything on TV looks a little farther, and it looks like a huge stage. And there's a lot of area around the stuff that's on stage, but everything for the show is like right in one little area, and it was surprising. And the contestants are a little closer together than they look on TV as well, and the closeness of it kind of surprised me.
So we've got some comments streaming in on the hashtag at this point. So the first 2 are from Matt Carberry, who just came back from a week in the Maritimes. Canadian things, how did they settle on washroom? David, do you want to take this one?
I thought that was for me for a second. I was confused.
Washroom versus restroom?
Or bathroom.
Or bathroom, yes. I don't know. What do you call it down there? I just thought that those were all universally known, you know?
I feel like washroom is a much more polite way of saying it, which makes sense for Canada. Bathroom sounds a little vulgar to me sometimes. So washroom sounds nice.
Well, you know, I have to be cognizant of where I am and which term I'm using.
Right.
Which country I am in, lest the locals start chuckling and make fun of me for the words I elect to use.
Right.
Another thing,
but how does that not make sense? Washroom, bathroom, restroom, that should make sense no matter what country you're in.
I am going to segue for a moment. Reminder that online testing is coming up.
Yes.
If you are a college student, it is September the 28th. If you are, I believe I have that correct, and if you are an adult, October 4th, 5th, and 6th. The reason why I'm talking about this now is because in many parts of Canada and other Commonwealth countries, we refer to it as writing the test. Apparently writing the test would mean what we might call setting the test, as in, you know, actually putting the questions together as opposed to writing answers for them.
In America, that's what that would mean, yes.
Yes. So I have to be careful when I talk about writing the test versus taking the test. And because more than one person has, you know, given me a hard time in the past for saying, no, you're not writing the test, Andy. You're not putting the questions together. But yeah, sorry. Back to Matt Carberry's tweets. My feed reflects my high opinion of your fine country, Andy and David. He also recommends Nova Scotia, Scott.
Oh, yeah. Actually, my wife and I will be there in October for a quick visit. Really looking forward to it. I always wanted to go.
Awesome.
I said a quick stop through Halifax, basically.
Go ahead, David.
And I've said this before, but one of my goals in life is to visit all 10 provinces, and the Atlantic provinces are the only ones I have left. So Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia. My wife has an uncle in Nova Scotia, so all of those I'd love to go out and visit. I've been planning this dream trip for weeks now that I have no idea when I'd have the opportunity to take.
I'm kind of curious to see none of it. Actually, I like kind of remote, cold places, and that I would like to spend a few days up there if I could someday.
Nova Scotia is my 7th province, I believe. Coming back from Prince Edward Island this summer, en route to catching my flight out of Moncton. If you go on a certain highway from PEI to Moncton, the turnoff onto the Trans-Canada is about less than a mile from the border. So basically it's, you know, a very short detour to just go into Nova Scotia just to say you've been there.
Yeah.
I've done that. Like when I went down to Kansas City, I said, okay, well, let's have lunch in Omaha just to say we've been to Nebraska. Yeah. It wasn't on our route at all, but we were going down Interstate 29, so just over there, let's say we've been to Nebraska.
So also...
I kind of live upstate in New York, not like all the way up, but a little of the way up from New York City, and I've been meaning to drive up to Montreal, and I just have not gotten around to it yet. It's just a straight shot up a one freeway to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know. Get there one of these days.
They don't swipe anymore with the credit cards. Why is the U.S. so far behind on this with the swipe versus the chip with the credit cards?
The chips are going in at stores this year, and it's not been a smooth rollout for everybody, but everybody's starting to get their chip cards, and we're starting to have to use, shove the chip up the machine now instead of swiping. Some places still have, it's kind of a weird in-between time where both are available to use, and but we're starting to have to get used to chipping. Yeah.
Of course, Andy, I don't know why you would wonder why the U.S. is behind. Remember, this is a country that still uses dollar bills and pennies. So the fact that they're behind on chip technology, too, doesn't surprise me.
David, I should remind you that the polls are tightening, and I am thus very loath to make fun of the United States of America at this junction.
He's right about the pennies, though. We should have given those up a while ago.
Well, it would probably help it would probably cut back on some government spending to
Yeah, definitely.
to get rid of the penny, but that is a topic for another podcast. We'll say that much.
Podcast, yeah.
A couple of things from Jay Johnson, who I hope I'm able to say this. I think he's going to be on the show in November, so congratulations to him.
Fantastic.
So it's hashtag lawyered, hashtag smartwater, hashtag should have poured it on my head, hashtag Jeopardy live panel.
Well, might have poured it on my head, but I was thirsty. So, yeah.
And then finally...
Thirsty work.
And then finally, what dates did you tape your shows, Scott? Also from Jay.
Oh boy, I'm blanking on the exact date, but it was around July 22nd, I want to say. Week of July 15th, July 22nd, somewhere in there. Don't remember the exact date off the top of my head. And it was the first week of for season 33, so everybody was kind of getting back into the swing of things. Alex was in a great mood, laughing with the audience, taking questions and stuff. He's awesome. He's just as advertised on the show.
Around that time too, isn't it? Alex's birthday is at the end of July, if I recall, on the 22nd or so.
What was I going to say? Was it your game where Muskox was a triple stumper?
Not my game, I don't think.
Okay. It came...
No, that wasn't my game.
Okay.
But I remember that.
Okay. Yeah, because it was the animal names category. On Tuesday it was a triple stumper, and if you're listening to this, looking for tips about going on to the show, here's a big one. And Alex's favorite animal is the muskox. So if from that perspective, the muskox comes up a lot, and Alex will get very disappointed in you if you don't get it correct.
His favorite movie is How Green Was My Valley, and that's been getting more Jeopardy time than normally for a movie of that caliber.
Yeah, so, that one I knew about, so I was ready for that one, but I did not know.
His favorites be able to identify a photograph of Ava Gardner.
He's a funny one, that man. He's got his favorite things.
Because he will, again, if you don't get that one correct, he will, get all wistful about it. And
it's interesting because when my wife taped her shows, 2012, I was in the audience for her. Of course, he takes questions from the audience for the commercial break. Someone asked him, what does he do for a hobby? He started talking about home repair, of course, which is, I think a lot of people know that he does that. But he was mentioning like a major plumbing project he had going, and he had 7 toilets in his driveway at that time. And he was worried that his neighbors were going to call the police or something because he had 7 toilets in his driveway. And it seems like he always is talking about doing plumbing repairs when I see him answering audience questions. It's very strange.
Interesting. And a response back from Jay, he thought that might have been it. His audition was on July 16th, and they said they were going back to tape. So,
oh, perfect. Yeah, it sounds about right then. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, my next question for you, Scott. Midway through last season, Sarah Edwards was one of the contestants, and she came on Jeopardy Live panel in kind of the open-ended section of the show. She brought up the question, how did you fall in love with Jeopardy? And I enjoyed the question so much I've started asking it to everyone who comes on. So my question for you is, how did you fall in love with Jeopardy?
That's a great question. I'm of an age where I remember when it came back. I was college freshman, college sophomore, something like that. But when I was home on breaks, it's a show that my mom and I could watch, and we would play along, and it was just a nice thing to do with the family, And when I got together with my wife, around 1990 or so. She was very into Jeopardy too because of her family being into it. And so it's just something my wife and I have always shared, just the fascination and love of this game and playing along and hoping someday to be the person on stage. And the fact that we've both gotten to do it is kind of amazing to me. And yeah, it's just been a part of my life for most of my adult life. And I've just always been a huge fan. I just love testing myself against the people on stage and seeing what I know and stuff like that.
That's awesome, and I'm glad you got a chance to share that story. Wow. Okay. Another comment from Jay. Shouldn't that be 7 washrooms in his driveway?
I think the toilet is it's not a room, it's just a toilet. So I'll have to ask, you guys would know better than me though.
Well, I am unfamiliar with with what Alex Trebek keeps in his driveway, so I will have to take your word for that.
What is something that has never been in my driveway?
Yeah. So I'm at the point where if either of you have any questions you want to ask that I might have omitted in my notes, go ahead. It is open floor at this point. Go ahead and ask.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention, since you talked about what was a category I was really excited to face, was the category I saw where my heart sank. Which was the second Final Jeopardy I faced, Dante's Inferno. Never read the book. In all my Jeopardy training, it had never even come up in a question. I didn't know I knew I had some vague ideas of what I kind of know what it's about, but I've never read it, don't know much about it. So I had a very hard time working out what my wager should be. I feel like I took a really long time to figure out my wager on that, and I just realized, well, maybe, I know more than I think I know, and this will be something I actually know, so I'll wager to beat my opponent, Siddharth, by $1.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the only one on stage who actually knew it, and so he won, of course. But, I came up with the best answer I could. I thought it was close.
Well, it was close.
It
was close in the respect that, it also titles the second book. It also titles the book.
Yeah.
You were my answer too, so I'm not going to fault you for that answer.
Guess
Something
what?
from that universe, anyways.
That was the only Final Jeopardy I missed last week as well. So I am.
What did you say?
I actually heard from a number of people who thought it was purgatory as well, so I didn't feel too bad.
Mm-hmm.
What was your answer, Andy?
What did my answer end up being on that? I didn't actually have. I actually couldn't come up with an answer in 30 seconds. Because the thing is, I knew it wasn't, Purgatorio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I say I didn't know enough about I don't know enough about the Dante's trilogy to know that that's the second book title. I just knew I'd heard Purgatory as part of. I don't know. I was guessing.
Yeah.
I was hoping it was right. Yeah. Hey.
So another on the hashtag from Matt Carberry, I saw on Twitter rumblings of the producers eliminating originally from. Is there anything more to be said about that?
Yeah, that was new. That was brought to our attention in the green room as we were getting started. This especially applied to Courtney, the returning champion, who had moved across the country to take a professor job. But they want to say where you actually live now and not where you're originally from. They didn't really give any reason for that change, but I think everyone except Courtney, who was there, it wasn't an issue, basically. But Courtney, instead of saying originally from somewhere in California, she had to now say she was in Maryland, where she was teaching, had become an associate professor or whatever it was that she had become in the meantime in her 3-month absence from Jeopardy. But yeah, that's going to be going for the future. It's like where you live now and not where you call your hometown or where you think you're originally from. So I don't know how that's going to affect college play exactly, but I don't know.
I'm not entirely sure how that will affect that either, but I'm sure they'll come up with a. They may also determine it by where you went to where you graduated high school. I'm not sure. I'm obviously not. This is only completely idle speculation. So.
Or they could just say a junior from Yale University. They're not even going to give a city, just name of the university.
Yeah. Probably, yeah. But it was a surprising change that we didn't know was coming, and yeah, it didn't affect many of us, but it's going to affect a lot of people over the course of the season for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting news. I remember a couple of years ago, there was this one contestant who was, of course, originally from the United States, watched Jeopardy in the United States, but just a few months ago moved to, I think, Kazakhstan or Mongolia or something like that. Had a really interesting chat, but her introduction was originally from somewhere in the U.S., whereas she was now living in Mongolia.
Yeah, that would be from Tashkent, Kazakhstan.
Yeah, exactly. Tashkent's in Uzbekistan, by the way.
That too.
Okay.
Again, like purgatory, it's close. So.
Yeah.
So, any other questions at this point?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to the live roundtable here on hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel. The full episode, I believe, should be coming out by tomorrow morning on iTunes, September 20th, 2016. In the morning, at this point, I've got a couple of other segments to tape, but once again, everyone who's watching, listening, if you are still eligible and haven't already been a contestant, obviously, go to Jeopardy.com and register for the online testing coming up next month. You will enjoy it, even if you've even if you think you could only score 15 or 20 on the test. It's still a good starting point, and I recommend every single person who is a fan of Jeopardy at least give the Jeopardy contestant test a shot. So,
honestly, if you're a fan of the show, the test is just fun to take.
Yeah, yes, definitely. I mean, who doesn't like trivia?
Yeah, if you like trivia, that's a fun test to take. So go for it anyway.
Yeah, and it gives you a great appreciation, too, of what the contestants have to go through.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm just seeing this quick question for you, Scott. Not counting winnings, what was more fun, Millionaire or Jeopardy?
Oh. Millionaire was a fun day. For people who don't know, I was on Millionaire 2.5 years ago, and I came away with $100,000, which was a really fun day. But Jeopardy is actually a better run show. I mean, Millionaire was pretty well run at the time. But Jeopardy, everyone's been there for like 25, 30 years. It's a tight ship. They take care of their contestants in a great way. It was a lot more fun to be on Jeopardy. They're both a blast, but Jeopardy's more fun just because everyone there is so professional and nice and good to you. And it's and Alex is awesome. And yeah.
Okay.
Right answer.
That is the correct response. Yes.
Yes.
So for here, I'm going to share, in case you missed the new title card earlier, you get to see the new credits card. So for everyone here at hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel and the JeopardyFan.com, once again, thank you to Scott and David for coming on tonight's panel. Thank you very much, and have an excellent night.
Thank you.
Hey.